Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be discussing a 4-inch lift for L322 Range Rover. Alright, behind me I have the full kit for L322 Range Rover full size from 02 till 2012. This is a full 4-inch lift, as I said. But that being said, it consists of two parts. It consists of a 2-inch lift, and it consists of the additional parts to make it a 4-inch lift. So you can upgrade your existing 2-inch kit that you have from me to this 4-inch kit if you want to. Also, I have on the floor, as usual, my props, bunch of parts off the rover, just so you know how it goes together as we go through this. Alright, so we're going to take a closer look here at the table with all I got going on. So we have the front end parts, the rear end parts, and those are some seals to go through things together. From 2-inch perspective, from the 2-inch kit, we have the returning parts are our front strut spacers, the tower spacers, some of the bolts and hardware here, which is, goes with all of it. And from the rear wise, we have the rear spring spacers and the bomb stop extensions internal in the rear shock. The rest of this is all 4-inch add-ons. For the 4-inch part, this is the rest of the parts that get added on. First, we have lower spring spacer. We have the bomb stop extension internal for the front. We have the lift rods for the 4-inch height. And then we have right here is the weld-on control arm brackets. They all come loose. You have to weld them on yourself and line them up. And they only go in one way, so you can't really mess it up. As you can see here, different lengths for the front lower control arm. And for the thrust arm, again, different shapes. So these guys only fit in one way. And the back piece, the bigger one, that's the control bracing. And this strap, because there's less space, that's a little like a tie-in brace for the rear and back of these. For the back, we have rear shock extensions, same thing as the front strut spacers, works the same way. We have rear lift rods, and then we also have two different set for the cost savings parts, is their rear subframe drop. So two of them have a dial pin, the other two don't. The front bolts go forwards towards the motor, they're dial pin, so hence why this has a dial pin addition. And extra wise is all the hardware that you need, and we're going to go through it here piece by piece, how it all goes together next. For the front end, so the front installation is going to be essentially the same as the 2-inch lift installation, so please watch the previous 2-inch lift video. They'll go over the basic installation. But once the strut's out, the extras are welded on the control arm brackets. As mentioned earlier in the video, they're only going one way, so once you position them, tack them in place, test fit the arms, make sure they fit in right, and weld solidly in place. Here we are on the other side of the vehicle. So the brackets, they just line right up and they're weld on. So right here, as you can see, it's all kind of only fits one way, just like that. We'll weld this guy on. Here we have the control bracket. Same thing, just clean all the surface up, tack it in place, make sure it fits good. Make any sort of adjustments you need to and weld it in place. That's step number 1. Number 2, once you have the strut out, you're going to have to disassemble it. So right here, I have my strut, and I already have the top knot, everything off, it's all apart. You're going to disassemble your strut completely. So the airbag has to come off, the air spring, how you want to refer to it. And underneath here, you will find these seal stack. I already have it off, so it consists of a orange spacer, a seal, another spacer, another seal, and another seat spacer. So there's the way they set up. They keep the O-rings in place, and that's what seals it from leaking air. And that's also if somebody has weird air leaks going from underneath here, you could be corroded here, and that could be your issue. So the way that goes on, you take all those guys out. This is the new lower shock spacer. This goes on, just fits, has holes to match the stock ones. And then you come with the bolt kit and nut kit with the lock and washer that threads in, and you thread your nut on right here in the bottom, and that gets you assembled. So I can do this with one hand. So that's the lower one, and then you just like same as it was before, you stack these back up, stack your O-rings, etc. Get it all together. I'm gonna leave it off because it'll be easier to slide some of the things on and off here. Next, we're gonna grab your bomb stops extension spacer. So these are a bit loose. They're gonna go on. They go in here in the bottom just because of the way the setup is in the front. You're gonna have to glue these in. So you can use either JB welds, some sort of metal to metal epoxy, and you're gonna have to set it up, let it sit overnight, get hard. If this sits overnight or for every time it does cure, check, make sure it's stable, does not come off. And then you're gonna put your air spring back on or your coil spring, wherever the case is, with a bump and everything else up inside of there. Torque a nut, put your top hat spacer back on. We'll leave that off for a moment. And don't forget, as with the 2-inch kit, because it works the same way, to shave off this lip right here about half all around, so you don't have to worry about any possible axle contact. And last part of the front is you want to get your new lift rods in place. There's an extra piece, optional piece, I don't have it here as this customer has opted out, and that is you can do a elevated tie rod. It's basically a tie rod flip kit. We're going to flip your tie rods from the bottom mounted. So right here, as you can see from the knuckle, there's a bigger taper here in the bottom, because the tie rods, the way they're set up, they go underside. So the new tie rod kit goes on top side. There's a spacer goes in here, there's a little stub spacer there, and then there's a new manufactured tie rod. It goes in with a rebuildable outer joint, so they are rebuildable. So if that's something you're interested in, that's going to be an additional charge and an add-on pack. Alright, now rear suspension. So initial steps are going to be the same as 2-inch lift steps. So the spring spacer for the bottom and the internal bump stop. So once that's inside the shop, you have the internal bump stop on, that's assembled back together. These are the new top hat spacers. They go on right on top. Then you put your nuts on the supply with it, and get you all the hardware. One thing to note, there is a little bit of an angle here, a little bit of a rise. So there is a left side and there is a right side, and that is just because these struts, they kind of mounted like this up inside of the body. So when it sits a bit more or less on a normal height, there's a bit of a tapered angle in there, so this helps to take it away from getting bombed up and making noises by having this angled. So it'll be marked left and right side. So after the shock's assembled, you have your buck spacers ready to go inside of the air springs assembled together with all the hardware that's provided. Next step is going to this whole big bag of goodies with all of this in there. And that is all to space the rear subframe down 2 inches to get the 4-inch lift. Wire-wise, brake fluid lines, everything else-wise, you should be fine. It all has enough play in it. You just might have to bend a couple things, but you'll be good to go. Just be careful about it. You will have to cut your exhaust roughly about in front of the fuel tank, and it will need to come down at an angle, and then it's going to have to get cut behind your subframe, and you're going to have to put another angle to lift it back up in place because of the rear subframe being lowered. For the rear subframe lowering, so we have the 2 rear spacers. They go in the back. You have longer bolts with the locking bevel washers. They go right up, and then you have 2 front spacers of the rear subframe with the dowel pins that mounts up here. There's a dowel pin on the body that sits right in here, and this dowel pin goes right here in the subframe bushing mount, so everything lined up as it's supposed to be. And we have your lift rods. Next step, while the exhaust is down, you're gonna take the heat shield off, and you're gonna take your carrier bearing down, because it has a U-joint in it, and you want the U-joint to be at 0 degrees angle, so you don't have any vibrations and shakes. This is where this guy comes in. There's 2 of them. You're gonna put some Loctite on it, and that is a threaded spacer, hardened, and it comes with a bolt as well, because the way there's a stud set up the way on there. Some of the newer ones, they have just a thread, and you put and run a bolt in, so you can run a longer bolt spacer. You can actually have a whole bracket, be a nicer setup, but that's how it's set up out of the box. When you take it down, as we watch the video here, you might have to shave off a few threads, so just carefully cut them down because they're a little too long for what the spacer is. And then Loctite, run the spacer, tighten it, torque it, and to OEM spec, and then torque, get your carrier bearing out back up in there, and then tighten with the Loctite the new bolt to the OEM spec. So there you go, you got your carrier bearing correct angle. Put your heat shield back up, bend it a little bit just so it clears the drive shaft now at its new angle position, and then weld up your exhaust to its newer angles and locations. All right, all that together, everything reassembled now. I do strongly recommend A is in alignment, and B, another important part is if you have air suspension, calibrate your ride height, make sure it gets everything readjusted and relearned, because there is a little bit of an air variance with the lift rods and everything, and we put on a bunch of parts to space things around. So you want to recalibrate the things so don't get air over pressurized or under pressurized and sit uneven. So you'll have to do that calibration. But that's it for the 4-inch kit. And as you can see here, if you have a 2-inch kit, you can easily upgrade to the 4-inch kit. at a lower price than the whole 4-inch kit, and that's because everything else, it's all meant to go as a Lego little stack on. So you just stack on extra parts that you need to get up rest the height. If you have any questions, anything like that, leave down in the comments. But outside of that, I'll see you in the next one.